We in here. See a different bottle of water this time. The Mountain Valley. So this is like one of Whole Foods brands. So like I was telling a guy in the gym earlier, when they asked me which waters do I look for because I run around so much, has to have the naturally occurring minerals in it. Right. Let me spin this right here. The naturally occurring minerals. So parts per million inside of the water. That's the important part. So that's what we're looking for when we look for water. You got this one. You got the other one, which is man, what's the other one? The other one is a clear bottle. But the clear bottle one, it's funny because when I walk around with the gym with it, people think it's like a vodka bottle. They be staring at you all funny, but it's a water bottle. But yeah, Whole Foods has this, and then they have the clear one. It looks like they're getting less shipments of the glass clear ones lately. You see the plastic ones now, which if you can avoid plastic, avoid it, but don't avoid drinking water just because of access. Get what you can get. So let's see. Waiting to see if some peoples are in the building. I know I didn't put out like a blast for this one, but somebody asked for me to yo so drop the link. I'm on StreamYard, so anytime I switch off of the StreamYard to try and do other stuff when I'm not at home, it causes the stream to freeze. So I don't want to freeze it up. But yeah, I should have put it on like Instagram and all that earlier, but I'm doing this live stream because my last live stream, someone put a question under there to talk about why are people who are on diabetes like seem to be scary about fruit. So I said I'll go over that. All right, I see y'all in here now. Mike Carter, what's going on? Snuggles in the building. Barbara Sanders as usual. Hakeem Bey. Gotta say the whole thing, right? Hakeem Zayed Bey. Peace, what's going on? Yeah, before y'all came in here, I was telling people about the way that I choose my water. I always see if I can find the waters that have the parts per million of minerals in it. That's my if I can get it. Fiji has it on there. The Waikea bottle that I like drinking the most from Wawa, that has it on there. Um, I know I probably pronounced it wrong, right? Yeah, I'm thinking that's why you LOL in hockey, but or maybe I said it right. You're just laughing because I corrected it. But yeah, I'm gonna go over the whole diabetes and fruit thing. I'm obviously going to talk. That requires me to talk about glucose tolerance factor. It requires me to talk about fiber, insoluble and soluble, and B vitamin absorption. So I figured I would go over a few of those things because those common questions, very common questions. And of course, water has to be in the fold. So that's a really big deal. So don't forget about the water. Like if there's anything you're going to go the highest on, whether you're sick or not, you want to keep the water intake pretty high. Like usually before I eat a meal, I down a bunch of water. So it's a good idea to fill up the stomach with mostly water so you don't overdo it on calories because large calorie intake get people in a lot of trouble. And this is why the standard, at least American diet, can be a bit of an issue because a lot of stuff we eat is calorie overload. And if you notice, most of the natural foods outside of like nuts and seeds and certain fats are pretty high, pretty low in calories when it comes from nature, right? So you're going to notice like fruits and vegetables, like a banana is like less than a little less than 100 calories. But the moment you turn it into a muffin, that joint shoots up to like 560. Why? Because you didn't took the banana, you didn't process it, you didn't add in all of these fillers and stuff. So that's what causes that to happen. But anyway, we got a few people here. So let's address the question that I was first asked, since it's a fairly simple one, which is why are diabetic people pretty dodgy when it comes to fruit? Metallic Maniac in the building. The reason that they're pretty dodgy when it comes to fruit is not so simple as just because the fruit has sugar in it. Generally, when depending on what doctors you talk to, some of them will be a little scary about it. Like, oh man, you want to really be low on your fruit intake and stuff like that. But the question is, how are you intaking the fruit? Like, there's for some reason in the world today, like, you always have to remember to talk about details when people ask you things. Like when somebody says, I'm a vegetarian or a vegan, now you have to question what actually do they eat, because you could say plant-based, you could say vegetarian, you could say vegan, and the majority of their diet is fried potatoes or fried cauliflower wings and, a bunch of soy-based products made with, coconut flour. And, you're not really, we're not getting to the point. And getting to the point is going back to nature-based food, meaning the way it comes out of the ground with minimal processing. And processing could be something as simple as a little bit of steaming and heating, but that's not taking it out of its natural state. That's just loosening the proteins in the food, which is why general steaming and a little light saute action is not really that bad. But deep frying and, cutting it up, adding sugars and all kinds of stuff to it can be a bad thing. You said explain the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber. It wasn't clear. One would say one makes you feel good, go through the digestive system. The other says it bulks up. Okay, I'm gonna get to that in a split second. So, when we're talking about the fruit, when you have diabetes, you always go back to basics. Your body's ability to process, let's say, food items is out of whack, so to speak. And the reason it's out of whack is because you've been eating things that are not properly put together. Like nature properly puts things together. When humans get hold of things, they concentrate and they process and they destroy the proper balance that these foods have. Your foods are supposed to have a balance of mineral, water, and fiber. The water is obviously to allow the flow to make reactions happen. Also, water is hydrogen and oxygen, so it has an electrical capacity, which means it has an energy attached to it. So water creates a flow for things to move, in. Okay. And besides that, your body is water. And if water creates a flow for things to move and things are low in water, that means things won't move, and things that don't move are not alive. Okay. So movement is life, and water is ever moving. You don't want stagnant water, because stagnant water makes people sick. Electrical water vortexes and moves and crashes and does all kinds of things. So your food must have water. You must contain water. So the water is no brainer. That must exist to keep flow going. Mineral is for structure, and it allows the charge capacity of the water to move certain ways. Because remember, minerals are just electrons, neutrons, protons, and the electrons that's our action potential. But because these things have a different shape, the way they move is a little bit different. So you can use minerals to create different reactions of water versus other things. So we need the mineral for structural purposes and for the purposes of making systems move certain ways, so to speak, right? Because remember, it's all about shape. Shape denotes function. So with the minerals, we can produce different ways that the electrical flow can happen and the way that things are shaped. Then we have the fiber. The fiber is something that helps your body create the conditions under which things can happen smoothly. When we say soluble fiber, they mean that it's water soluble, meaning just like salt and sugar, if you drop it in water, it'll dissolve in. But the fibers of the plants that you eat, the fibers of the food, what it does is it actually helps you to absorb the water. What it does is it slows down digestion, because it makes the water turn into a gel. And by turning it into a gel, it doesn't just go crashing around, it slickly moves through. So imagine you got regular water, right? You see how fast this water spins and moves in this bottle. But if I add a bulking agent to it that makes it gel up, it still moves in a water like nature, but slower. It's thicker. It's holding more things, right? It allows more surface area for things to be grabbed and held. And this is important, because if everything is straight liquid, it just falls through. But if you create it in a gel state, not only can you have more of an electrical capacity rolling through that, but again, its ability to hold. Imagine if you're so you got the fiber, you got the water absorbs into the fiber, creates like a gel-like atmosphere, which means now as things are moving around your gut, it's allowing things to be held by the fiber, minerals, vitamins, things like that, which means as it slides through the digestive tract, the slowing of the movement and the greater surface area makes it easier to pull things out. That's what makes absorbability higher. Now, the insoluble fiber is great for packaging up, because what happens is if you don't have enough fiber and things are like too thick and it's not in the proper consistency, you get things like straining when you go to the bathroom and stuff like that. And you don't want the contents you're carrying in your body to be like too rigid. So you can use the insoluble fiber to make things like bulkier, which again, it's about surface area. So the surface area makes it so that things can move cleaner through the digestive tract. So what happens is you got the waste from the digestion. The insoluble fiber packs around the waste to bulk it up so they can move in one continuous motion smoothly out the digestive tract. While the other type of fiber, the water soluble fiber, becomes a gel that creates surface area to hold things that you're actually going to uptake. Because once you get into that bulking phase in the lower colon, not the lower colon, but near the colon, but if you break up the digestive tract, right, like swallow, once you get down, you hit the stomach. Stomach is where all the gastric juices come in from the pancreas and all kinds of stuff, and it helps break down the food. Then it moves into the small intestine, which is more digestion, okay? So stomach is just like the chemical factory. Get things broken down enough for it to be able to, slickly move through. Then we get into the small intestine, which breaks into three areas: the jejunum, it's duodenum, duodenum, jejunum, ileum. Down near the ileum is where a lot of that bulking and stuff will happen. That's down in the area where things are ready to be carried out through the colon. So there's not going to be a high lot of absorbability there. Most of the absorption is going to happen in the duodenum and then in the jejunum. Okay, so it's up to you, Barbara. Yeah, you can go back, but basically the difference between one and the other is one creates the gel, the other creates the packaging, basically. So you have the gel, which is something you can grab to pull things in with. The other one is just a packaging to help things get out. So if I'm simplifying it, that's literally what insoluble and soluble is in the simple form. Obviously, it can get more complicated, but that's if you're going to use it for something. But in general, you want both because one of them is going to create gel. So if I were to trying to think, all right, let me untwist this, right? This is, I was doing a video shoot the other day, and this is lollipops that they were creating. And I'm gonna wrap this back up because I need it for the other areas of the video shoot. This ain't one of the clean ones, you could tell because it's not like shaped properly. But look inside of that. See? You see how you can see contents inside of that? So I want you to imagine that this is not a hard surface, but this is a thick gel. And that gel is holding materials. Now, because it's holding materials, when it slides along the edges of your digestive tract, the gel is creating a harder surface area than just plain water. Plain water will just crash and bump up against the edges, and whatever the edges of your digestive tract grab is all it grabs. But when it's a gel and it's thicker and it's slicker, it grazes across the edge. It creates this more surface area is how things graze together. They create a little bit more friction than just straight water. And because of the friction, imagine if you got a gel rolling across your skin like Vaseline, it coats thicker and more even as you move it. Straight water, it beads up. Like you're trying to rub it around, but it's real beady. It doesn't absorb very well. So when you gel a thing, it allows more grabbing area. So when it rubs across the digestive tract, whatever it rolls across, it leaves residue, and that residue has a surface area that can make things easier to grab. And also remember, just like in this lollipop, you see there's like materials in it. That gel has materials in it. And because of the higher surface area rubbing up against the digestive tract, it's easier to grab it and pull it in and move it to the portal vein where it can go into the bloodstream. That's why straight water alone is good for you, but it's not helping you with absorbability. Fiber does. You see what I mean? And what fiber does is if you have higher absorbability, you also get better insulin reactions because they say that what is it? Your glucose tolerance factor, right? Like when you eat sugar and you get that fiber that goes along with it, without the fiber, if it has a water-like nature, that means it moves very fast into the system, which will cause the sugar to spike. Okay. When the sugar spikes, it's got to wait a little while for processing for it to go back down. Also, remember, because you got that water and you don't have that gel-like state, the water is just crashing through. So it's not grabbing as much as the body's not grabbing everything that it wants to grab because it's not bulky enough. It's just crashing through. It's all about surface area. I'm gonna keep repeating that. So if you create a gel-like surface area with the fiber, you are moving slower. The things are moving slower, but your body's grabbing more mineral, grabbing more contents out of what has been put inside the gel, all the minerals and everything else. So once all of that gets in there, that slower motion of the gel rolling through versus water slows down the uptake of the sugar. So now instead of getting a sharp peak of sugar rising and holding because your body's got it in the bloodstream trying to get it out, over time, a certain amount of sugar is just coming in. So the plateau is more even. Hence, you don't get this sharp spike really high because as you need the sugar throughout the day, it's a slow grab. Since it's not coming in fast, it's not spiking fast. But if you send the sugar in with no fiber, nothing to bulk it up, and it's in that water-like state, it comes in real fast, spikes the sugar, and now it's all in the bloodstream. Your body got to hurry up, get insulin out there to say, grab it up so the cells can take it in. So it's all about that surface area. So you want to gel up the structure. Hold on, let me see what y'all saying, right? Yo. Consensuously aspiring. What's good? Second Ezra is in the building. So y'all let me know if this makes sense, because the fiber argument is really about absorbability and elimination. That's what it's about. One type absorbs, helps with absorption. The other type helps with elimination. If you do not have the type that helps you with elimination, you get the constipation and the straining and stuff like that. If you don't have the one that helps it gel up, absorbability slows down. Or in the case of sugar, because it's very water soluble, like it dissolves very fast, it spikes the sugar levels real fast. But because it's not moving as slow, even though sugar is getting in, because it absorbs faster into the water and other things don't, you wind up getting more sugar into your system and salts than you do all the other minerals. You see, this is where the gel-like state comes in. Would I rather open up a bottle of water and flick it and let that go down the hall and see what sticks, or would I rather turn it into a gel and flick that down the hall and see what sticks? Which one's going to stick easier, the water or the gel? The gel will, because the gel has the surface area to help it stick. And when it sticks to the edge of our digestive tract, it allows the villi, the finger-like projections on the edge of your digestive tract, to have an easier time grabbing and pulling things in. And it's a gel. It's not like a hardened thing, right? Because if it's a hardened thing, it's gonna be hard to pull through because it has to have that liquidy structure to really get through. So if you're eating things, that gummy things like cheese and crispy things and stuff like that, that's not liquid enough for the body to pull it in. So it tries to pull it in and it can't. It gets stuck. So instead of the finger-like projections being able to pull things in, it sticks to the gut wall. And when it sticks, proper exchange does not happen of water and nutrients and minerals. And remember, a part of that gel going through and that water going through keeps the digestive tract clean. So if something sticks in the areas where things are supposed to get through and gums it up, now things can't get through. Now you have digestive resistance. So things aren't getting through your digestive tract, which means even less absorbability. So this is what we're talking about here. Drinking prune juice, smooth move tea, organic India, psyllium husk, pre and probiotic fiber. You're doing too much. You're going to have an issue because you're doing too much. You don't need that many things. Like prune juice is really to help. We usually tell people to drink prune juice. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's prune juice, not beet juice. We usually tell people to drink the prune juice because it helps emulsify fat. Now, yes, it has a way of helping with the digestive system, but the primary reason we tell people to drink that is for emulsification of fat. So, because remember, oil and water don't mix. So if you throw something like beet juice in the middle, it helps give a blend to the two so they both get into your system. So that's a part of the reason why. So now you're taking that, then you're taking smooth move tea. Then you're taking psyllium husk. You're just taking a pretty much a bulking agent like consistently, and you're following it up with a pre and probiotic fiber. Why would they call it that? I don't know, because technically, if you just eat fruits and vegetables, you're literally getting it all in a package it's supposed to be in. You see what I mean? So it's not about whether something is created with healthy materials or this and that. Like, for instance, I have psyllium husk at home, but I rarely use it. If I find that the food I got is low in fiber, I can include the psyllium husk to balance out. Like let's say I'm in a stupid mode and I'm gonna go eat some cheesecake. I'm not gonna get much fiber out of that. It's gonna be way more sugar than fiber. So what I want to do, if I do take that cheesecake in, first of all, I'm not, if you're not chasing it with water, that's gonna be a problem because the sugar is concentrated in that. So it's gonna shoot through that system very fast because there's nothing to slow it down. When I mix the fiber with the sugar, it becomes a gel-like state and it slows down the movement of it so the uptake isn't so fast and spiking my sugar up real high. Because remember, if the intake of the sugar is slowed down, the sugar spike doesn't reach too high of a peak, causing headaches and drying and all kinds of problems that you tend to have. So you want to slow that absorption down. That's why fruit comes with the right amount of water and fiber, because if it just sends the sugar in, diabetes and all kinds of stuff, that's what you're getting with processed food. Hey, the part about that fruit that they like is the sugar. Take the sugar out. Don't worry about the fiber. Don't worry about the water. Just create a new creation with it. Now you just got more compact sugar. You see what I mean? Nature knows what it's doing. Enough of fiber, enough of water, enough of mineral. And then when it goes through your system, goes through clean. If you're only eating proper fruits and vegetables, digestion is not a problem. If you start eating fruits and vegetables and your digestion doesn't get better because you thought it was bad, you need to see a doctor because you need to know what's going on. Did I kind of mess things up a little too bad before I address the issue? That could be what it is. Because if you're, like in the case of what you said, Barbara, if you took that many things and you're not getting a proper response, or you're getting too much of a response, or it's kind of weird. It's like, man, I'm taking all this stuff and I'm not having a response I want. Again, that could be like, yo, I got to go get checked out, because you don't want to, before getting checked out, start hitting your system with too much stuff when it can't get through. Because now the doctor gonna check you and be like, what the hell is going? What have you been doing? Like, I see all this stuff just sitting there. It looked like you tried to hyper push some other stuff in there before coming to see us. They can see all that. Sometimes they just don't address it. So, tart cherry juice. I never heard tart cherry juice good for sleep. I heard it good for arthritis, but not good for sleep. Could be. Never looked that up, but I'm used to that being good for arthritis. If you're trying to sleep, you're trying to create melatonin. And that's something that Dr. Inky's been talking about. You're not going to secrete too much melatonin if your melanin concentrating hormone is not very strong. And that's not going to be strong if you're not getting tyrosine, copper, selenium, all the precursors to creating melanin and other pigments. If you don't get those things, then you're not going to get good reactions. Because like, if you want to, like if you're on your computer right now and your phone and you're listening to me, go online right now. Y'all pull up melanin concentrating hormone and look at how many things it regulates. So when the doc put that in his paper, he wasn't lying about that. That's like the backbone of like a lot of stuff. And the funny thing is, it's cool that we have Dr. Inky, because someone like me, he's passing by terms I read in the past, but didn't dig as deep because I was just trying to understand the terms so I could move on and kind of stack all of these concepts. But he has the time to sit and study and study and study over all these years, and it's the only thing he does. Me, I got all this other art stuff going on, so I don't. It's better for me to study and get the shell of a thing, because I don't get but so much time to study details. That's why I study details when people ask me a question. Because I actually studied details a long time ago when Dr. Inky had the God Complex course. The God Complex course was like, I think it was like 12 chapters. Hold on, I'm gonna roll my window down more because the sun is pointing in here and it's starting to get warm up in this joint. Yep. Yeah, it's connected to melanin concentrating hormone is connected to melanin production. That hormone in and of itself, though, is because think about what it's saying. Melanin concentrating hormone. When you concentrate a thing, you're taking the substance that really makes it tick and you're packing it really tightly together because you're concentrating it, right? Like when it says orange juice from concentrate. Concentrate in the case of usually fruit, though, usually means more water is removed and more of the other, like either the fiber or the mineral content is concentrated. that which makes up the fruit. So pull back some of the water and have more of everything else, and then you get a more concentrated thing, right? So when we if you take strawberries, put them in a pot, and you add sugar to them, and you start stirring that under the heat, the water from the strawberries are going to come out, and it's going to bind and create a gel to the sugar, because the sugar is going to absorb into the water, and it's going to cause the crystals to turn to liquid. But it's so much sugar, it's going to thicken like a gel. Now you got strawberries with sugary gel around it. So the water basically is out of the strawberries, and everything's just one big globular gel. So you just concentrated it, right? You have more sugar and more, crystal substances than you do water, because you just added to a formula that was already perfect. So it has tryptophan, then yes, okay, then I can see what you mean. But then tryptophan is a precursor to melatonin. The question is, like if it were me, I'd be aiming for tyrosine, and I go for the resveratrol, which would be in the purple grapes. You can get it as a supplement too if you want to do it that way. But yeah, but keep in mind, you want to look up how things are built within your body. Are me and KT doing a review of his paper soon? Oh, I've already spoken to him about the paper. What we have to do is we have to do like something public. I don't know what KT is going to do, because I don't know, because Inky said he sent the paper out to everyone, including KT, and he hadn't heard any response yet. I don't bring it up because I want them to handle what they got to handle. Like if KT hasn't brought it up in public, I'm just going to naturally assume there's a reason he didn't. Now, if I do ask, I would probably ask him in private. I probably wouldn't do it in public and see why. But when I don't see people back something up, a person like KT, a person like me, is going to spend an extensive time checking what was put out, not just seeing if the paper itself makes sense, but you going to check all the details. Because remember, let's be real, the paper Inky put out shows how the dots connect, but not every minute detail. So that's the part where you got to do your own studying. Now, for those of us who do decent study, we can see his connections real fast. People who do no study, there's too much terminology for them, and they don't make it all the way through. So everyone's in the different stages. So my assumption is if KT did not address it yet, it's probably because he's still looking into it and he wants to formulate his own opinion on it, or maybe he just don't want to, but I can't answer for him. So that's what I'm saying. So yeah, I've gone over the paper. I've read it 3 times already. He told me some adjustments were made to it and to the studies below it. So I'm reading it a 4th time, but I'm reading the times that I'm reading it at the same time I'm going through the studies attached to it. So, because if me and Inky it's going to be weird with me and Inky having a review, because I'm going to have a high understanding of a lot of what he put on there. And what I need to do is go through the studies to formulate questions so that there's some content when we come together, so that he's not repeating everything you saw in the other shows with people who don't study these things. So with me and KT, the mix of conversation would be totally different. So that's expected. Yeah, it's going to take a minute to do a background on all the concepts. But me personally, you guys already see, I've already done quite a few live streams where I mentioned it, I showed it, I talked about it. And I think I did one on Urban Nerds Worldwide where I mentioned it. So on the other channel, I did it too. So not much of an issue with me going over it. But then again, like I said, I don't have the time to run through all the data like they do because of the other stuff I do. And don't get me wrong, Inky's got a life with the kids. KT's got his kids, his family, the music, and all that stuff like that. So they have time too. But at the very least, they can focus all their things around the central topic, which would be health sciences, herbology, and all of the so on and so forth, right? Where with me, it's a totally separate subject. It's straight drawing, painting, videography, photography, animation. These are things that don't allow me to sit in front of the books and look at the medical terms as much, because I'm too busy doing like on the creative side. So it's a little different. Yeah, high level combo on that paper would be crazy. But remember, Doc just had a video come out yesterday, where he said he's even got some more tidbits coming out that people are going to want to check out soon. So he, when you don't see him for a while, he's working on something. So every now and then that would make me just kind of jump in. But yeah, we need to get back to keeping it simple, even with the type of world we're in. It's better to go get fruits and vegetables than to say, because they're not the ones that I want, just go get something unhealthy. It's better to be in that level. It's just like saying, because I can't get the perfect water, I'm not going to drink water. Now you should still drink water. And get to the best one you possibly can when you can. So you do the best you can. So that's the rule of thumb for that. And now here's something that I can tell y'all that I want to see. Because I think they're on different sides of the coin with this. It looks like Inky and KT are on different sides of the deuterium argument. That's something I would like to see them talk out. Generally, they kind of talk these things in private though, so that when they put it out in the public to the people, it just, the people just have what it is they need, right? So, but that's something I would see. Like, I want to see the deuterium argument, because what do I know about deuterium already? I know that deuterium is important when it comes to children growing. That's a really big deal. Deuterium is a big part of that. What part do I think KT is seeing? KT is seeing the part where the hydrogen of the water, because remember, you got hydrogen, you got protium, you got tritium, and forgot what the next one above that is. I know somebody want to laugh and say quantum, but no, that's not it. But you got protium, tritium, and then there's the fourth stage of water. But that second stage, that heavier hydrogen, that protium or deuterium, I'm sorry. So that's what it was. Protium is singular, deuterium is double, tritium is the third, and then there's a fourth one. Okay. So the deuterium is the heavier hydrogen. What happens is when we talk about the electron transport chain and we get to the end of the electron transport chain where the where there's a spinning of the turbine, if the hydrogen molecule is heavier, it makes it harder for the turbine to spin. It's kind of like if you got a 4-cylinder car and you're trying to put extremely high octane gas into it, like real heavy gas, or if you're putting oil too heavy in the engine, it makes the engine way more and it struggles to turn as strong as it should. And when that much force is being put on it for too long, it eventually can mess up the mechanism. So you don't get the turnover as fast as you need to. So because of that, I'm not 100% sure when I say this, you can check me on it, but it creates this uncoupling effect where there's a buildup of heat. And you want that turbine spinning to constantly create the phosphorus reaction. So you don't really want to stun that unless you're trying to like fry up fat or you're trying to survive in cold weather. That's when the uncoupling thing comes in, because you generate more heat. You don't dissipate the electrons that's running through the system. So that's why you want to make sure that you take care of that. And then on like I said, on Inky's side, because the deuterium is used in growth, could be a reason why you want the hydrogen to be a little heavier. So yeah, I would want to see them talk out the deuterium thing. And as long as they're not, I'm going to keep checking into it every once in a blue moon. But yeah, that would be a curiosity. Yeah, like people are talking about getting deuterium depleted water. So, but then I'm also hearing like there's hydrogen water, and then you got deuterium depleted water. So, we got to work and reconcile that whole thing, right? We got to go through that whole thing. Yeah, protium, deuterium, tritium, right? Protium being the first stage, deuterium the second stage, tritium the third stage, the heavier hydrogen. And I believe in chemistry that is based on because I don't believe we're talking about isotopes. I think in this case we're talking about more neutrons, but the same protons and electrons. Y'all let me know on that, because I think that's how that rolls. And then when you have more protons, I believe is the isotope. Haven't done my chemistry thing in a while, but yeah. Yeah, isotopes of hydrogen. Is that moon rocket? Is that more neutrons or more protons? I'm trying to remember. Like, I'm drawing a blank on that right now, because I haven't gotten to the stoichiometry and all that stuff like that. I haven't done that in a while. Haven't had a reason to. It's great to do that stuff when you plan on putting formulas together. And I was doing that back when I was in Inky's classes. I would sit at home and do the stoichiometry and put all kinds of formulas together, but I haven't done that in a while. Same protons, more neutrons. Right. Okay, there you go. Yeah, the neutrons. So, but yeah, so back into the diabetes, right? So keeping it as simple as I can possibly keep it. You need to match up the sugar, and the fiber. The one thing I have not mentioned yet on this specific live stream is glucose tolerance factor. We got to go over that. The reason that glucose tolerance factor can be strong, can be regulated is because of chromium. Now I know y'all have heard in the past, chromium and vanadium were the big two piece when it came to regulating diabetes. The reason chromium is important is because it's a part of the enzymatic reaction that helps control glucose tolerance factor. So when your chromium is higher, you get a threefold better reaction on insulin. Now remember, Inky told you in his paper, insulin is used as a weight gainer. Why? Because it's the signal that there's a lot of energy in the system in the way of glucose that needs to be taken up. Now, I know from studying the electron transport chain, when you guys see the different stops on the transport chain, acetyl coenzyme A comes in with oxaloacetate, and then it becomes citrate, isocitrate, and so on and so forth, on down the line, all the way over to malate and back into alpha ketoglutarate again. Certain enzymes in between each jump have a kickback mechanism to it, and one of them for under, I believe it's near between citrate and isocitrate, is called aconitase, aconitase, aconitase with an A, okay? And aconitase, what happens is when there's too much energy being fed into the system, it can stop at that point and the system can flow backwards. And when it goes backwards, it's saying that no energy is needed to go that way. Back it up, and then it starts to go into gluconeogenesis. So you go from the, you start moving backwards, and you go from the acetyl coenzyme A back to pyruvate, and then all the way back up the glucose again. You work backwards through the steps. And once you have gluconeogenesis, now you go into storage. And when you store it within fat cells. So once you start storing it in fat cells, that's the gain weight mechanism. So by having insulin tell your body to take up the glucose into the cell and speed up the processing, if that glucose is not being used to supply energy, the take up goes in the direction of fat. So remember, you have, let me draw you guys. And hopefully it's not backwards when I do this, because sometimes when you do these things, it's backwards. So we got the sugars or the glucose, and it can move into energy, or it can go backwards into storage, aka fat, right? Hopefully this isn't backwards. Yeah, is that backwards? My screen's small, can't tell. But if you guys can see that, right? So sugar's here. If the insulin hits it, it can start moving towards energy. But if there's too much energy in the system, it moves backwards towards the fat pathway where it stores it into the fat cells. Okay. So instead of breaking the sugar down and creating the electrons and things like that out of it, the body sees there's too much energy coming in, it moves backwards and starts working its way backwards, gluconeogenesis, back into glucose again, and then eventually it's stored into the fat cells where it's tucked away, held as fat on the body. I'm not going to say where it can't do no damage, but where it's not single-handedly in a position where it can directly damage the system because it's just sitting in the bloodstream. One of the big issues with diabetes is the sugar is backed up in the bloodstream. When it's in the bloodstream, it's a crystal. So as a crystal, in order for your body to move it through the bloodstream, it's going to combine with a liquid like water. And the water is going to cause it to gel. And when it gels, because there's too much, remember, the water is becoming a gel in your bloodstream. So you got too many crystals and it starts soaking up more and more water. The gel becomes real thick and it makes things hard to move. And when blood ain't moving, oxygen ain't coming in. And whatever location that blood is very slow or it stops moving will start to atrophy. And that's where the cut off toes and limbs and the tingliness and stuff, that's where that comes from. The blood flow's not moving. And remember, because the sugar is drawing water out of the cells, it's drying out the thing that it's near. So since it's in the blood, that means it's in the blood vessel near the walls, which means it's drawing the water out of the blood vessel walls. And when those become rigid because there's no liquid in it, they can't stretch. And whatever can't stretch will sit there, which means when the blood pressure gets higher, it's felt as a hard pulsation. You see what I mean? High blood pressure. Y'all ever lay down on your pillow with high blood pressure? You can hear it through your ear. You can hear the cushion of the pillow. I heard it when I had high blood pressure. That's how I knew. You can kind of hear that beating. Now, of course, you're supposed to feel some form of pressure, right? When we test our heart rate, you're supposed to feel some form of pressure, but high pressure is like boom, like it's really hitting. So, um, I love it when it's sea moss, hate it when it's blood. But yeah, so this is what we're talking about here. You still let the sugar sit in the bloodstream, going through chain. Now remember, if your body is in top shape, let's say you're a baby, you eat the sugar, you're not hungry no more, goes through the system, comes out. There's no more sugar just sitting in the bloodstream, just turning over, right? Nothing in there to absorb the water out your system and dry things out. But there's only so much blood in the system at one time, right? So you start eating sugar over time, which they like to call age. You're eating sugar, eating sugar, eating sugar. So just that little bit that was running through the bloodstream to be processed, now it's becoming a longer line. And what's that line look like? Well, what's the shape of your blood vessels going through your body? As you stack more sugar in there, that line of traffic in the highway that we call the bloodstream is getting longer and longer. And as it's getting longer, your body's using some because it's pulling it in to the cells to digest it and then use it for energy. But if you're packing more in than you're burning up and more than that can be processed and put into fat cells, well, it's constantly coming in, which means eventually, if I don't know, if I had like a string, right? Let me get this rope, right? If this is the bloodstream, right? I got my bloodstream. I eat a little bit of sugar. Maybe the sugar is like sitting in one spot and just traveling along the line. But if I keep eating sugar, eventually it's a larger amount and it's flowing completely through the entire bloodstream, which means the areas of your body that your body's trying to get the sugar away from so it doesn't dry it out, there's constant sugar sitting in the bloodstream flowing all over the body now versus one thing where we just push it through and get it out. And because it's just sitting in the bloodstream everywhere, water's being pulled out of everywhere and dehydrating you. So we get the dry lips and we get the bathroom reactions and all that because your body is pulling water into it to keep it liquefied so it can move. But eventually, there's more sugar than there is proper water flow or liquid. So this causes the liquid to actually get thicker. See, now when you drink water, you're sending water behind the sugar to bind to the sugar. So you're going to get full real fast. It's going to bind with the sugar. It's going to cause your blood pressure to move faster because water is a blood thinner and it's going to push it faster through the system, which means you're going to pee more. So if you don't put the more water in the system, you don't pee as much and you think you cool because you ain't going to the bathroom when really what's slowing it down is the blood is moving sluggish through the system. And what little water you probably still got in your system is being pulled into the bloodstream. And that takes time. And because that takes time, it takes a while before the bathroom reaction actually happens. And this time the pee is probably yellow because you ain't been drinking no water. So it's pulling other things out of your system to liquefy it to get it out of there. But remember, because the sugar is everywhere in the bloodstream, it's drying out your kidneys, it's drying out your liver, it's drying out your blood vessels, it's drying everything out. And then eventually there's not enough water to liquefy some of it, so it crystallizes on top of the pigment. So if y'all read Inky's paper, you see where this is going. So you crystallize the pigment, which means the frequencies that are trying to strike the pigment so that the pigment can help create that voltage, which is an electrical signal that shapes the light that we call information, can't get through. And where there's no information and there's no flow through that pigment, you're going to get atrophy within the system. And whatever system that is determines the sickness you get. So obviously, if the sugar is stagnant in the brain, causing no melanin, no pigment movement there, Alzheimer's, dementia, MS, Parkinson's, because now we're getting into the nervous system, right? Deterioration of the myelin sheath that's around it, which if you guys didn't know, you need B12 to help that out, right? And the reason why the doctors give you insulin is because, again, if I give you insulin, I match up the insulin to the sugar they're trying to like force the sugar into the cell. Like, hey, give them more signals to make it go into the cell. And then your body has a certain speed it needs to turn that into fat. So you got a bunch of insulin and sugar like backed up trying to push through into the cell to get out of the bloodstream to keep you alive. But it's so much, it can't get through fast enough. So it's destroying you. Okay, hopefully this makes sense. If it makes sense, y'all can let me know. Or if some parts don't make sense, just let me know and I'll simplify it even more because I might jump around quite a bit, right? So we got all this happening with the sugar. The glucose tolerance factor exacerbates the issue. Hence the fruit part that we were trying to mention earlier. So you already got sugar in your system. When you eat more, it eventually causes the sugar to spike really fast, especially if the food is baked goods, pastas, cakes and candies, because there's no fiber there. And with no fiber, nothing gels up to slow down the movement of the sugar into your system. And when it don't slow down, that means it going fast. And if it goes in fast, sugar spikes fast. And when the sugar reaches a certain level outside of homeostasis, outside of balance, headaches, lethargy, tiredness, you see what I mean? Because there's more in than should be in, and the body is the master of balance. So if you're forcing something in there artificially, throwing your body out of balance, you get symptoms from that. You see what I mean? So you get the fiber in, at the very least, you couple it with the sugar to gel everything up, slow it down so it absorbs slower. Now we're talking about soluble fiber because that's the water-based one, the one that absorbs in the water. So the sugar collects the water, the fiber comes in, these things become a gel, and it moves the sugar doesn't hyperfly into the system. So now it's gel-like. It's a little more amoebous. It's like a snail crawling on the ground. So it's slowly climbing the sugar, which gives your body more time to process and deal with the sugar that's currently there without ringing the alarm bell saying, damn, the sugar's way too high. We need to do something to get it down. Make them pee, pull water out of the system, do any damn thing. Just get the sugar out of the bloodstream so it don't start tearing shit up. You see what I mean? Now things are getting worse. And then once we get that amoeboid action, we get things absorbed. Now in comes the insoluble fiber for all the things that are not being used in your system, all the stuff that your body's like, all right, we're going to dump this out. The insoluble fiber is used as a proper packaging mechanism to help move it through the rest of the system, through the colon and out through the bowels, so that you can have an easier bathroom break, so to speak. So that's the two sides of the coin. One for gelling, one for movement. Okay. Yes, the sugar is the devil, and we can't get around it. No canned fruit, because the canned fruit, first of all, you're going to have some form of liquid in that can. So it's going to be drawing some of the toxins out of the metal. Now, I know they have the whole BPA free and stuff like that, but there's a breakdown process that comes with leaving anything in a can. Like on YouTube, you can find videos. There's a guy on there that does videos of him opening cans from like the 1960s. And you can see how these things eat away at the cans. He has some things from like the 80s where it's like, man, this can barely looks like. So it shows you the preserving mechanism is pretty good. But still, these things you put in the cans absorb things. So the canned fruits, that's a processed joint. Bagged fruits, I'm okay with the like cut up fruits that are frozen. But then again, remember, freezing doesn't mean that it stops the process of degradation. It drastically slows it down. So that's why if we're going to get veggies and we can't get them like right off the tree or right out of the produce section where we can just cook them up right away, freezing is the next best thing because it drastically slows down the protein degradation mechanism, which I told you that heat oxidation can do because it's all about shape. And what happens when you if you have these metals running through your system and you oxidize them, you rust them, they fall apart. What happens if you have too much heat in the system? The proteins, just like anything else, become loose. That's what heat does. Like I said, if I heat this bottle up enough, there's a threshold temperature where it will melt, which means it no longer holds shape, which means it can't perform its function. But just a little bit of heat probably still be hard because it didn't break the threshold yet. This is what the immune system was about. When I get a fever, it's loosening up the proteins, which means whatever makes this mechanism work can work faster. So your body can produce more white blood cells, more red blood cells. It can perform functions faster, which is why every 1 degree temperature, your fever rises, your immune system's power doubles because of the looser proteins making it so it can move faster. How do you know that? Well, when it's cold outside, can you move as fast as you can when it's warm? No. The proteins or the shapes slow down because that's what cold does. It slows down the degradation process to the point of it can't move. That's why you don't want to be frozen because no movement is no life. Okay. So I hope these things are helping you better understand how common, like the common sense stuff we learned still applies in the high sciences. You have to keep the common rules of nature applicable to all the high sciences you learn. So no matter how difficult it gets, no matter how annoying the term gets, like last time I was showing you guys the gluconeogenesis joint, I put like a chart or something up, I think on one of my social medias, and it showed you like um septohedulose phosphate. And you're like, damn, long ass word. Then you find out what the word actually does. But even if you find out what it does, you got to apply the usual scrutiny. Balance, right? Okay, what does it do over here and what does it do over here? What if I hit it with this or hit it with that? While I'm doing my study, what other things are connected to it? And this is what makes studying the information hard, because it's breaking nature into words. And nature is, if anyone in the chat can remember the word, what is the word for where nothing is a straight line? The closer you get to it, the more you realize that it has its own shape. There's like a term for that. And I read it in a book a long time ago, and I cannot remember the term for it. But we use the word like self, same, similar, but nothing's ever a straight line. But as you get closer to something, you start to find out how more complex it is, but it's still the same thing, right? Like the edge of a beach to water. You look at it from very high up, it starts to look more like a straight line. But when you get closer and closer, you can see more and more detail to it. There's like a term for that. But yeah, you have to apply that same level of scrutiny to everything. And because if you don't, that's where people trap you, trying to do things. Like if you're going to talk about being you're going to talk about pH, then you got to talk about the acid and the alkaline and the balancing point. You can't just talk about the fact that acid is bad, because then what if somebody says, then why is my DNA deoxyribonucleic acid? Why do I have stomach acid? Why do I have these things if all acid is bad for me? Is a lemon and a lime bad now because that's acidic or acid, right? So citric acid, and then you have acidic, right? You got two different words there. So make sure you apply the principles to both, no matter how difficult the words get. Said 50 minutes gone. I know, right? I've been on it. Yeah, I've been on it for 52 minutes. That's crazy. Laundry almost done, because y'all know whenever I'm sitting in the car, I'm rocking out doing some laundry. I was going to do a live stream at home, and I was planning, I need more time around it, but if I'm going to do the live stream with Inky, I want to set up the background and the effects and all that stuff like that. I know some people are like, you ain't got to go through all that, but I'm still going over the data Inky put out. So as long as I'm going over that, there's time for me to put the other details together. But if I'm ready and the details aren't ready, then I'll just do the live stream and go from there. Just so y'all know, if y'all are not following Urban Nerds Worldwide, follow that page too, because chances are if I do the live stream with Inky, that's the one I'm probably going to want to do it on, because I think that is nerd science that needs to be known to the world. So, and I'll let him know that, but that's the page we want to do it on. There's more eyes watching there, and that's the nerd squad. So, over here, this is the family. This is the private squad, for those who really want this stuff on a regular basis. Urban Nerds, that's a mixture of things, but this applies to the science side of STEM. So it's important that be over on that page. So I'll probably have it on that page and then copy it to this page at some point. So keep those things in line. But yeah, all right, besides that, I remember last time I did a live stream, we were talking about this concept of I'm switching gears here a little bit, guys, unless you have other questions. We were having this conversation. I was having this conversation with one of my old heads in the gym. I think this was yesterday. And we both have a Christian background. So when we discuss concepts of like consciousness, the universe, and stuff like that, we always talk about we give it out in like a Christian like manner. So for those who read the Bible, it's easier to understand us because so many people read it. So there's other ways to explain it, but I talk to him like that because that's his most common way. He looks at me like I'm retaining such, how do you retain such high amount of data? And I always tell him, I was like, anybody who cares about something can retain the data for it. So it's if the data is useful to you, you'll retain it. If it is not useful to you, you won't retain it. You also won't retain it if it's being taught in a method that's not your strength. Me, visualization is my strength. So the further you get away from visualization, the longer it takes to process it, which is why people get tired and start falling asleep fast the further you get away from their learning language. So if pictures are fast for me, then that means when you talk, I have to be able to see the picture in my head first. Then I'm able to decode it from there. So that's one step of translation. That's going to slow down my ability to pick it up faster. You see what I mean? So talking is not my number one way to learn. Pictures actually are. So when people show me a picture, I pick things up faster. But when they talk, I've translated stuff in my head so much from people talking that, now it's like clockwork. Like now I can convert to pictures pretty quick, but I make sure I know the subject matter in order to be able to do that, right? No, currently, Barbara, it does not accept the payment other than PayPal. However, um, let's say if it were like Cash App, I would have to do some maneuvering and I would have to add on the fee. But I can, like, for some people that I've met, I've taken like Cash Apps and Venmos from them, did the order for them and had it sent to them. That's pretty long-winded though. I can't, like, I just don't have enough time to do that as a consistent thing. But it's possible. You would just have to, like, outside of a live stream, like, try and arrange that with me, and I'll see what can be done for that. Where I would actually take the money and put in the order, but have it sent to where you are. So that's not impossible. What we would need is we need merchant services. So all this time you see us taking to really push Urban Nerds is because we have the GoFundMe, the GoFundMe that you guys see Black Voltron advertising real heavy on here. That GoFundMe is to raise money for infrastructure so that we can have merchant services and people helping us out with corresponding to emails and stuff like that. So without that, we don't push but so hard because then we'll get this large feedback we can't handle. So we need that infrastructure first. The visuals are nice, but I know we need that infrastructure to be able to help more people out. All right. So yeah, I was talking to my old head in the gym, and so what it seems like his concept is, he believes that if we become so conscious that we reach what we would call people talk the fourth and fifth dimension, right? I don't understand why people talk about I don't understand too much why people use the fourth dimension unless they're relating it to time, because I know dimensions in physics. And dimensions in physics, the fourth dimension is a time thing. The whole tesseract thing. You notice when you get, point, line, plane to 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D is time. That's why the tesseract shows like two squares moving in and out of one another. It's a time-based thing. So if you're not controlling some aspect through time, then I wouldn't call it 4D. Now, if you're talking about other universes and things like that, I call that 5D, because when you reach 5D, you're starting to repeat the power you had from 1 to 4D, but in further universes and time and realms, so to speak. Okay, so if I were to turn realms or universes into planets, it would kind of be like, okay, if you mastered 1D, 2D, 3D, and time on Earth, if you say I'm in the 5D, that means now you're mastering your ability to interact with a location beyond the realm you're in, which would be the other planet you're talking about if we're using that example. But okay, with that being said, he believes, and y'all can tell me what y'all believe. He believes that if the mind has been mastered, the way he says Christ told us that we would be able to do this, do that, anything we could do, anything we think about, we'd be able to do. You guys kind of get it, right? He believes that the mind is such a thing where it kind of removes everything and things can instantly happen. Now, I'm okay with beliefs, but the problem is he like hammers it into you as if like, no, I'm trying to tell you that if these people are woke and they really get and they master this thing, their mind will be able to do basically anything. Now, me, I can't. The reason that that's a block for me and I can't get down with that is because it removes the point of having well, not totally removes the point, but I was going to say it removes the point of having a difference between physical body and spirit. Spirit is the reason all things are possible, because the spirit is nothing but that what we call our spirit is that piece of God we received into this vessel. The light, the energy, the experiences, that all these things that we call light that gets entered into our body, which has a spirit in it, starts to create a shape, and the shape is held by a magnetic field. So basically all the knowledge and everything you learn is held within this magnetic field, and it takes on a shape. And that shape it takes on at the end of your life, at any point, we call that a soul. So the soul would be the lit body, where the spirit is just a package of potential put into a body. So right now, what I'm doing for you is I'm giving you my definition of all of the big five, as I call it. You got God, which is if you were to try and package up everything, the universe, all possibilities, everything, you just get this big ball of plasmic gas and it's stillness, right? And when you disturb it, that's movement. That's the first frequency that we call the word. And if you're talking Christianity, the word was with God, the word was God, and so on and so forth, right? Later on in the Bible is where it says, let there be light. So it's not light first before frequency. The word is frequency because it's the first disturbance, which means it probably created sound, light, electricity, everything, regardless of whether you could pick it up or not. So there was a manifestation in the beginning. Now, if we're saying that that word was the beginning, it was a vibration, it was a disturbance, well, no surprise that in science they call it the Big Bang, right? How loud was the bang? Or was it just, and then there was that first thing, and then that first thing started ever expanding? Okay, so just, hold that. But the God is the reason that everything can exist, which means this fits the definition of someone who's omnipresent, omnipotent in and around everything. However, just so y'all know in advance, I do not subscribe to a text message came in and that messed me up. But I do not subscribe to attributing human characteristics to what we would call God. I don't attribute that. Meaning, if a human makes themselves fly and then starts flying and abusing the ability to fly by messing with people, you can't come in and say they're playing God, and you can't start asking why doesn't God do something about it? Why? Because if God is the all, the only way to get anything else is to take a piece of that all. So if someone asks me from now, that's explaining God. If you ask me what spirit, God negates from self. So if you take a piece of that thing we call God, that absolute potential, you put a piece of that absolute potential into a physical body. So now that body is a smaller version of the all, made in our image and likeness, right? So we covered that. So the God is omnipresent, omnipotent in everything, above everything, and the reason all things can happen, except you don't get the right, in my mind, to define the characteristics to God. You have to define them to the person expressing the possibilities of God. So if something evil happens, you don't say, why does God let it happen? Because you're a piece of God with the ability to express. So if you express a negative thing and you like it, you're causing the harm, not God. Now, I know some people will be like, yeah, but you came from the thing you call God. Yeah, but if you say that, what you're doing is assigning the human characteristic to God. You can't do that. God is the reason all possibilities can happen. Now, why should we be able to have evil and good? That's an easy answer. Because the only way to tell one thing is to have an opposite from it. How would you know what good is if bad doesn't happen? You won't know what to call the good thing. You won't have there's no opposite. A shadow exists because light came. Otherwise, it's all darkness. You shine a light in one area, I can see light and I can see dark. So you need separation. So separation is what is a part of possibilities, right? So now we have God. We have that piece of God that's flung into every living thing, which gives it a potential. We're the humans, so we have a piece of that spirit, right, from God, and we have potential. How great is that potential? Depends on how conscious we become, because since God is the reason all things are possible, that means all things that are possible are in you, which means it takes for you to go within, to contemplate, to manifest, and go into that what we call the mind, which is the connection between what we would call God and man, the ability to think. That is the part that allows us to pull down spiritual things so that the body can manifest the thing. Okay, so that's the connection between spirit and the physical thing. Now, like I said earlier, we talked about God, we talked about the spirit. The spirit was put in a body, and the connection between body and spirit is mind, so that you can contemplate on things spiritual, and that the mind can feed into the body so the body can actually move and physically act upon it so you can experience it. Now, the information that you're gathering, the light, right? The light is all things experience. When you sit in the mom's womb, that's an electrical signal. Whatever the mom experiences is being pulsed into you. It's electricity going through water. Because remember, water speeds up electricity. Your mom thinks it and feels it, it's hitting you as an electrical signal. An electrical signal is a type of a disturbance. What is a disturbance? A frequency. If you shape the frequency and you light it up, it's information. And that information, once you receive it, to the point where you have it, you understand it, whether your senses have connected with it, your body's connected with it. Once you become conscious and aware of it, it is a type of light. Why? Because it is information that can be used to be acted upon. And when you take all these different pieces of light and you bind them to a magnetic field, which when your heart pumps, it's creating a constant magnetic field that holds the shape of you. When you bind the light inside of it, the shape of your magnetic field is the shape the light becomes. And that is what we would call an etheric body, meaning once you remove the physical vessel, the spirit now is intelligent, and we have a soul body, an etheric body. You have taken that spirit, you've created expressions through experience and actions and things like that, and now you have a shape of it, which is the etheric body, which can continue to build different experiences. This is why you can go on and live beyond the physical plane, manifest in new physical planes so that you can experience and bring in more light. And eventually you light up, you light up, you light up, you become a star, you become a sun. You receive so much light that you have enough of it to radiate back out and feed another life form. So there's always new stages and ever growing possibilities within the verses. Universe. So if God was the word and the word was with God, that's a form of physical vibration or sound or a verse. So the universe is the single sound or the first sound. The multiverse is many sounds. So I'm just showing you now. Remember, I'm giving you my perspective. I'm just showing you how I look at this whole shell of a thing. So if that all makes sense, what I believe the elder was trying to do is I think he was trying to jump the gun. It was almost as if he was saying that if the mind masters what it should down here in this physical plane, it can basically just manifest whatever it wants anytime it wants. That's good as a belief. But if that's going to be possible, I let him know that I believe that the vessel in which the spirit is in must be prepared to do it. I don't think you can escape consistency and practice and movement of trying to manifest a thing. That's what makes it solid. That's what makes it important. You vibrate it so much that eventually it becomes a solid thing that you can do. We do this when we exercise. Think about it. Some of y'all right now, if y'all do enough pull-ups and back exercises, you can actually flex your lower back muscles. Some of you can move your eyebrows. You don't always automatically be able to do these things. You have to do something to strengthen that muscle and make that movement possible. And it's the same thing from spirit to body. You have to have the vessel open so that when the spirit contemplates and you want to manifest something. So imagine, I searched long ago, does a thought have weight? They said yes. Scientifically, they said a thought has weight. It's just so damn low. So I have a thought has weight. We have magnetic fields, electricity, light. We got all these things. So manifestation, clearly possible. But if I broke my legs and I want to manifest the ability to walk, my mind and spirit aren't the issue. The reason that I can contemplate walking is because my spirit and my mind are intact, which means I have a connection from my body to the spirit. The problem is my body can't act on it because the vessel itself is broken. So if we're going to eat bad food, we don't have to just look at the easy stuff. Like I can break my hand and not be able to move it. What about your thoughts? What about the ability for your body to create light? For you to be able to create like stronger muscles, bigger muscles, and perhaps maybe one day move things with our minds. How's that possible if you can break the things that make it happen, but then we want to ignore it? You can't do that. The vessel must be cleaned and it must be open so that when the mind starts contemplating a thing and trying to do it, the body can concentrate all that energy and light to doing that thing. When I first started, I like to use exercise because when I first started doing my leg exercises and I would jump, you guys try and jump on something high, like if you got like stairs outside your house and you don't have very strong legs, try and jump up 3 steps and see if you can do it quietly. If you're a beginner, you probably can't. It's going to sound like your feet are slapping against the ground because you haven't built up enough energy, enough channels for energy to go through that system to receive a stronger response. So when you jump more and more, eventually you jump up those 3 steps, you can jump up and land softly. So if I can land hard and then I can land soft and then I can land quiet, well, who says that I can't strengthen that to the point where eventually higher and higher locations become softer and quiet to the point where my muscles are so twitch strong, that perhaps my body can push off and feel the stroke of water. Which means now, just like there's like this video going across the internet of an animal doing it, and there's a guy who actually ran across water, but it was like these little thin pads he ran across. So now the average person can't do it, but he ran fast enough so that when his toe would touch the pad, it could pull on the pad in the water and propel him further. So you see what I mean? There's levels to this. So if there's levels to that, then there's levels to manifestation. So when my elder tries to make it seem like the one that I can just sit at home and meditate and get my mind into a position where all of a sudden I can manifest all, I'm not quick to agree with that. I'm cool with belief and faith in something happening because it would be nice, right? Because what that would sense to me is if your mind is that great, you have mastered this level of existence and it's time to move on to something else. But I also know that if you're saying like I can manifest new weather patterns and change this and change that, there's an issue with interfering with someone else's expression, someone else's space, so to speak. And I'm not so sure about that part. So, right, RTP, spirit, mind, body. And I was telling him about the examples of martial arts, mind, body, spirit together. And if we're going to talk about spiritual things being manifested, I'm not so quick to let somebody get away with just saying that, taking the lazy path. They want to be, if you're going to make that case for doing things that are like hyper spiritual, then you need to be able to prove that that's still the case for other things. Like, because it's one thing where it's like, oh, I'm gonna go exercise and get my body strong. But on the other hand, you're making this argument that if the mind is strong, I can manifest anything. So that means you can just manifest muscles out of nowhere without putting in the work. And I think that the price of physicality is the work and consistency necessary to make things that are spiritual tangible. The price is putting in the work. And I think the way he's explaining it takes away the work. It's like a Christian who just says, I'm not going to move my feet and do anything. I'm going to just pray and God will answer. When those type of spiritual things are supposed to be reserved for things we absolutely have no connection to. We got a problem on earth and nobody has an answer. Nobody's thought of an answer. There's a poison out there and we have no idea where to start looking. We don't know anything. Now we go with it. Now we pray, we seek, we meditate and do all those things. Because we're asking for the internal, that spirit thing, we're showing it a problem and we're asking it to bring us down, to manifest us some form of solution that we can physically work at. That's what that's reserved for. Belief, faith, prayer, meditation, supplication, those are for manifesting a new creation and strengthening a thing. But it cannot be the all of a thing happening. We can't say the spirit will make it all happen because the spirit is the potential. We can't say the mind can make it all happen because the mind is the processor. We can't say the body can make it all happen because without the mind and the spirit, the body is nothing. So mind, body, spirit together. Because when the spirit has the possibilities, the mind can contemplate it and the body can carry it out. So I'm never a believer in the one thing fits all. So trying to escape the hard work that comes with doing things physical by hiding behind I'm spiritual, I'm in my head, I'm calling bullshit right away. Because you're hiding behind that because you like it more and you understand it more. It's like me trying to tell you that everything has to be physical to manifest. No, because part of the manifestation is the spirit and the contemplation of. Then comes the work. Because if there's no idea, then what the hell does the body do? So I can't say it's all physical. If I just keep working at a thing, I don't know what the fuck I'm working at. I'm going to manifest the thing I haven't contemplated. No, it doesn't work like that either. You see what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Faith without work is futile. Faith without works is dead. That whole thing, right? And that was the point I was trying to bring to him. So I don't know. Y'all can tell me now in the comments or after we get done in the comments, what do y'all think? Do y'all believe that we can be so conscious and so strong in the mind we can manifest everything and anything at the drop of a dime? Now, anything and everything I'm with. At the drop of a dime would be the questionable part. I believe that we can manifest, mess around one day, make the bottle float, call water to myself and make it work. Be able to have brain-to-brain communication without talking with another person. I'm with all of it. I'm with the belief of it all, making the human body so lit that it can actually be glowed to be seen, like kind of on Last Traffic. I'm with the belief and with the faith. And with the meditating on these things and thinking about how cool it would be, that's the part of me that has a childlike nature to it that keeps us alive and keeps us growing and keeps, the physical experience interesting. Because once you become old and it's all about reading the papers, sitting on your ass, you too old to walk up and down steps and carry stuff and to play around with the children. I mean, that's your experience. That's not the one that I want. Like, I want the one where when there's grandchildren and they talking trash in basketball, I'm 60 years old and they will get dunked on. That's me. So remaining young at heart, regardless of the amount of experience and time I have on earth. So, right, Moon Rocker. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. You can't just suddenly say, my mind is so great, I'm just there. Because these are electric, magnetic, and light-based concepts these are physical things. The spirit is the reason the physical things are possible. The mind can contemplate it happening. Like in your head, you can fly and you can do all those things. And that shows you a glimpse of what is to come. But you have to start doing something with the body to move towards it. Now, we're not saying in order to fly, jump off a building. You work with the vessel that already works. You work with the feet. You work with the hands. You ground. You get sunlight. You imbue yourself with enough light. You do the exercise, right? Because we know we're getting closer to that point when our legs get stronger and we can feel the slightest touch and pull off of it. That's crazy when you can, like, if you can jump and land soft off of very high surfaces, that is a big deal to a lot of people. But some people get their toe touch so light that they can pull their body's weight off of a piece of paper. Meaning if I'm running and there's a piece of paper sticking up on the ground, I can propel my foot off of it, as light as that is. That's how sensitive the amount of power and electricity generated within the body must be. Because remember, when you land light, you're concentrating energy to a certain, that's why I call it concentration curls. I like to call them concentration landings. When you jump off of a surface, look down at your feet and concentrate on how your foot comes in contact and lands on the ground. As you practice that, the bone structure, the physical part within your body that it must do starts working. That piezoelectric crystal. You land on the ground and you pound on it lightly, but consecutively. It generates this electric charges in your body that creates small micro tears that when you go to sleep, your body says, we don't like the pressure. It could break the limb, so build it up stronger. So see, your concentration, your practice is making something stronger to the point where you can unlock and feel things differently than other people. You're entering a new space of activity. You see there's guys that's like, what, 5'4" who can dunk? Something's working. You see what I mean? So we just, the guy who I was talking about, he was a Buddha, I think he was a Buddhist monk, and he had this lake with these thin pieces of paper, and he had been trying to run across it for years, and one day he got across it. And remember, the average person tries to run across that, they touch one of them pieces of paper, they go straight underwater. So what he did was he got the strength of his feet, his ankles, the concentration of energy in his body so strong that he can propel off of each piece of paper and not go under the water. That is at least a starting ground of trying to manifest the ability to run across water, because that would be a hell of a step. To some people, it's like, that's impossible. But I'm like, we're clearly getting closer. So possibility is not really the problem anymore. It's just the practice, the strength, consistency over and over, and a strong, concentrated mind. The cleaner the vessel, the greater the electrical charge gets through. So can't bench press higher? Oxygen capacity might be low. Muscle capacity might be low. You see what I mean? Nutrition to build up the structure so that it can receive more charge might be too low. See, the concepts all make sense to bring us forward. Is that breatharian level stuff? Again, if that's what people want, they want to be able to draw electrons from the air to power their body. Okay. But you're talking about drawing enough electrons to physically, and now we're just talking about electrons. What about the protons and the neutrons? What about the thing that will make the energy dense enough to solidify and add stature to you so you don't have to actually eat? Because you take in food so that the energy can be compacted into something that puts size onto the body. You see what I mean? So that's, again, belief and faith, meditation, all the practices, not against that. But there has to be a balancing concept somewhere. Something has to have checks and balances, like nature. You want to control nature? Well, you're going to be doing exactly what we do now. You're going to constantly have to sleep with one eye open in case nature decides I'm ready to send an earthquake that's going to rock the whole world because you've done so much damage to me that that's the type of balancing output that's going to come out, right? So you got to have that balance somewhere. And with nature, I think the thing with nature is you're supposed to understand it, fall in line, and when you fall in line, manifestation becomes easier because you understand how it works, so you don't have to fight against it. So when back in the day, you could check the weather, tornado, whatever's coming. You can either build a structure that can withstand the winds that you can stay under, or you could just say, all right, well, I guess some things need to be moved around the earth to rebalance the energy. So a tornado must come through, a hurricane must come through, rain must fall, a volcano must erupt. There's a disturbance to create a disturbance to keep things going to another thing. When you let things out of your body, something in the environment needs it. You got to do a number two, soil needs that. If it's raining out of the clouds, soil needs that. You need that. You need that water, right? You breathe the carbon dioxide out. The plants bring it in. Something always needs something else. It's a natural cycle within nature to keep things moving in a circle so that everything feeds everything and everything keeps moving because movement is life. When movement stops, life stops. It's that simple. Electricity, magnetism, light, those are products of frequencies and shapes. And because they consist of movement, which is what a frequency is, it's a movement of a sorts, right? That's life. When the first action happens, when we call it a disturbance, that boom that we call it, that disturbance of the inertia, what is the inertia? That's the plane at which two energies meet to create stillness. You disturb that, meaning you put more energy to one side than the other, it causes it to explode out. And when it explodes out, it's in the shape of a donut called a torus. And that toroidal field, when you're inside of it, that is what we call space. Space has no properties. What is the gravity then? The gravity is the spiraling, because remember, when it explodes open, it spirals out. But it starts to try and pull back in unless you keep disturbing it. Then it pulsates. And the pulsing is the frequency. What is it pulsating at? And it holds shape because it's pulsing so fast, the frequency is real high. So it holds shape. And then if that shape creates more disturbances, you get this vast expanse we call the universe. See what I mean? It's ever expanding. So that same toroidal field, your body's heart, when it beats, it puts out a toroidal magnetic field. So when there's any frequencies around, your body can actually draw them in, and the senses can turn them into electrical signals that they can be decoded and held as a shape. And when that shape has been received, it can light up, meaning information has been received. Now, the ability to interact with the different frequencies is what Inky said, Dr. Inky said. It is the pigment that allows you to interact with the frequency. The frequencies is going to come, but what allows you to decode them without having them vibrate and burn up the thing that's receiving it? Because remember, sun beating down is a constant frequency. It's constantly striking the skin. But if you're strong enough to handle it, that melanin absorbs the frequency in. Because the frequency is black, it means that it is an encompassment of multiple frequencies. Because when you start adding all the color bodies together, they become brown and black. That's your melanin color. So if the color is brown and black, that means it is made up of multiple frequencies, which means it can interact with multiple frequencies. And if you split those up and put them in different areas of the body, lutein, zeaxanthin, heme, you can even talk about chlorophyll in plants. You could talk about myoglobin, cytoglobin, pigments, the thing that allows a certain type of frequency to come in, and your body can draw that in and create voltage off of it to power the body, and then to process it using the mind. And the mind picks up the information held as light to create the light body. All right, I think I've explained enough, right? How do you use mTOR? Dr. Inky talked about in regard to muscle mass. Here's a funny thing. Look up mTOR, because I believe that's the one I was looking at. mTOR and sunlight. I believe sunlight actually, I'll look that up, but I'm pretty sure it was mTOR that I read. There was this funny thing that happens when you stand in sunlight, it causes like the white blood cells in your system to stand at attention. And I think that was a part of mTOR. And that's what allows the fighting to happen. He was saying the problem with the mTOR pathway is the mTOR pathway is for bulking. So if you're going to bulk, you're going to eat all this constant food and keep this insulin popping and stuff like that, you turn on the mTOR pathway, and that mTOR pathway is what's going to cause bulking. If you turn off the mTOR pathway, then you're going to cause a lean muscle mass gain. Lean muscle mass gain is when you become not necessarily bigger, but denser. That's why back in the day, when they show you the ancient Egyptians, you might occasionally see one dude who extra bulky and dark, but a lot of them are a solid build. Like they're like the size of a basketball player, and their muscles are defined. They're not really cut up as in veiny, but if they were to swing a stick or jab at you, it's strong as shit because their bones and their muscle mass is very dense. It's lean, meaning instead of making your bones grow, it just adds more ripples into the pattern. So this is the last thing I'm gonna show y'all, then I gotta go. But let me show you something. If your bones are made up of a cross stitching pattern like that, right? So if I were to give you, imagine if sticks in real life, your bones was made of sticks that were this thin. I could easily grab at them and crush them, right? It's a principle Africans use. They hand you a stick and say, break the stick, and you can break the stick. They hand you a bundle of a few sticks, you tell you to break it, you can't. When you get really good amounts of density, which is that lean mass, you start to add more. This is what we call the crystalline structure. You start creating more ripples and scaffolding and lines in the design. So now that there's more scaffolding and tighter packed lines, kind of like when you hear Inky talk about the mitochondria are smaller and more tightly coupled together, that creates a density that allows it to withstand. Sorry, I just got a call. How do you turn on mTOR or lean density muscles? He did a whole lecture on that. And give me a moment to get that right, because I might have to answer that in a separate video so I don't answer it wrong. Because I'm familiar with the mTOR pathway for bulking, and I'm familiar with turning it off as for leaning. I know for a fact certain foods you eat will turn it on. Meat, dairy, estrogen-laden foods, that will turn it on. Avoiding those things will turn it off. I won't respond further than that because I need to get my details on that. And I can't get that because I'm in the car. I have a totally separate base of information for that, and I want to have the whole thing if I respond to that. But that is what I do know. It is definitely something that's heavily diet-based, and best believe sugar is going, you already know what it's hitting for. Sugar is not going to help you. We're not talking about any sugar. We're talking about processed sugars, things that aren't matched with proper hydration and fiber. That's what we're talking about. But yeah, also, you have things like insulin, like growth factor, insulin itself, and you have HGH, human growth hormone. One of the ways that I knew people could gain like muscle real fast is by uncoupling their cytochrome 5, the turbine in your electron transport chain. Babies, it happens when they get cold, their mitochondria, their cytochrome 5 decouples so that it's not spinning the turbine to bring in the protons and the electrons, so they stay separate and they create this strong charge density that's trying to hold itself together until that starts spinning again to dissipate that heat. Because remember, any electric movement that is stagnated starts to build up heat and friction. The heat and friction causes the fat to burn. And when the fat is burning, you're pulling more glucose into the system to burn as energy. When you have a hyper amount of energy, the heat, right? Just too much electrical activity going on. If you're consuming high amounts of calories and you're decoupling cytochrome 5, you're hyper bulking your body. That's what's happening. But the problem is, remember, joints and tendons and bone are not going to build as fast. So you tend to see a lot of huge bodybuilders have bone issues later on, like Ronnie Coleman, back issues and stuff. That back issue is related to bone, therefore it's related to nerve, because the back, the spinal cord, runs all the nerves through it and out into different sections of the body. So if you mess with that, communication within the body goes down. And if that starts to decay with communication, that means proper minerals and things don't make it to locations that they're supposed to because of the lack of communication. So you start to, all your joints get weak and you start to have problems, and then they tell you got to get surgery and all this stuff like that. Yeah, you want lean density muscle. Stick to the script, at least for right now. Stick to the script. You want to do hormesis training, which is pressure-based training, which is going to usually be calisthenics, squats, push-ups, dips. things like that. When it comes to the food, you want to stick to the natural foods. You want to stick to less estrogen laden food. You want to stick to more testosterone laden food. And you just want to stick to that pathway. When you start getting off of that, you start taking in the estrogen laden food, the dairies, the cheeses, and the meats and stuff like that. You're going to turn some mTOR on because your body and the sugar, your body will be in such a catabolic state. You're not going to be able to do any anabolic things, which is build up. So you want to stick to that. But I'll get you a more I'll do something later on where it's more succinct, where I'll literally define the mTOR pathway and all that and the things that it does. I ain't gonna say all that it does because that could take days and hours, but I'll be able to define it properly, break it fully down so you can put like a working mechanism to it. For right now, the easiest way to make it work is you got to stick to the script. Hormesis training, which is more related to calisthenics, and you want to keep the diet lean. You don't want any major amounts of estrogen, sugar. It's the common stuff we always talk about. Lots of water, less estrogen-laden food, healthy fruits and vegetables, and no tricky stuff. Like, I get mad veggies, but I get my canned veggies and my bag veggies. Try to make it as not questionable as possible. Don't say I don't eat any meats, but I just eat fish. Don't do that. Don't say I'm a vegan, but then I go eating Beyond Burgers and a lot of potatoes. Do not do that. Stick to the script. The healthy fruits, the healthy vegetables, leafy green vegetables. Get you some sea vegetables so you get your B12 in. B12 has to, for those who don't know, that's related to the myelin sheath. If you're not getting B12, your myelin sheath can get weak, which causes like the MS issues. So make sure you're getting the B12. How to get rid of a chronic cough. Depends. Is it a wet cough or a dry cough? You got like bronchitis and then you got like a dry cough. So if they have a chronic cough, the first thing you want to do is find out what the doctor says to see if it's like what type so we can define it. Because again, like if it's bronchitis, it's probably a wet cough, joint where it fits like tons of stuff up in there. Because if you're not going to use you're not going to use this if it's a dry cough. You're not going to use a Mullen blend. Because everybody's like, everyone knows Mullen is known for pulling that mucus out your system. If you have a dry cough, that's not the issue. So that's the first thing. A dry cough is making you irritate your system, which eventually can become dangerous. So you got to find out what's causing the dry cough. It could be a chronically dried passageway, which means you have to hydrate the body. Sea moss would be excellent for that. What else? I wouldn't go the aloe route based on what Inky said, but if you do a little aloe here and there, it is what it is. But things that are cooling and soothing. I dare to say marshmallow root. Psyllium husk is full of fiber that will gel up some of the water you put in the body. Anytime you gel up the waters in your body, not too much, but a good amount, that's a good thing because you want plasmic liquid in your body, not thin water. You want plasmic liquid, a slightly gel state full of minerals because it hydrates the body and it makes it highly electric. When you have water and electricity, especially when the gel is at a high state, y'all heard of plasma TVs, that's a gel state that electricity moves through, and electricity moves faster through water. So imagine with the crystalline structure of gel, oh man, the current be cutting in all kinds of crazy ways through your body. So you want to have that. So find out what kind of cough, if it's a dry or a wet cough, and then we go from there. If a doctor can diagnose it, then even the better. Flax seeds are estrogen laden, but I've heard they impact they said it's a nasal drip, but in a case study, they said it would be hard to diagnose because it can be an acid reflux or antihistamine tolerance. If it's an antihistamine tolerance, that means he's taking some type of medication because that's what I know of as antihistamine. Now, your body creates regular histamine. So if you meant to say histamine intolerance, then that means there's an allergen around. And you need to have your body scouted for allergens, dust mites and stuff like that. Definitely check for dust mites. Get your house checked, like the location he stays, any of them. The house, get it checked for dust mites. What do we call it? Asbestos and things like that. Make sure he doesn't have an allergen in the house because that could be what it is. It's an allergen that's irritating his airways. So, oh yeah, see, histamine response. Histamine responses come when you take an allergen, and doctors can detect that by looking at your eosinophil count. Your eosinophil count goes up, which is your IgE bodies. That means it's an allergen. So have the doctor see if he has any of that. If it's acid reflux, probably what he's eating. What he's eating is building up a lot of acid. You get acid reflux when the foods you're eating create acid and you keep filling your stomach up with them beyond the point of the stomach's tolerance. So if you have like your stomach is as large as this bottle and you fill the food up way to the top, the acid has to go above that to digest the food. And if the acid in the stomach, if the acid goes above that point, there's something called the sphincter that closes off. When the acid burns that, it starts making it open and then it comes up into the throat and burns that up. You can wind up with throat cancer. So if he's eating a lot of stuff that's acid laden, that's going to be your pastas, definitely your meats, your processed foods and baked goods. Too much of that for his size, that's going to build up a lot of acid in the body. Now they're going to give him antacids, but the problem is he has an overabundance of acid because of the things that need to be processed within the digestive tract, not because it's too little. So when they give you antacids, it stops the burning sensation, but it makes the waste in the stomach stay longer. And if that starts to bore, if that waste gums up the digestive tract and bores holes in what they call leaky gut, and it starts sending thick proteins into the system, undigested food, some type of allergic reaction is going to ensue to the point of eventually it becomes autoimmunity. So yeah, do a full diet check. Don't just go simply for the he has a vegan diet and he eats healthy. A lot of people say that. You have to scrutinize the diet. You even have to, it would be smart to learn where his genetics come from and then study the diet of the location that he's strongest in. Like if you find that he has a huge Nigerian background when you check out his genetic path, you need to find out the foods that naturally come from a place like Nigeria. And then you need to start feeding him those foods and see if you get that same response. Because remember, food can be heavily based on where you come from. Where some people come from, it's like, yeah, we might want to talk a little meat in the cut for this person because of what the environment they're in and where they come from. Might want, basketball players and bodybuilders, the amount of stuff they do, the amount of protein you got to stuff into their body. I'm not saying it's going to be the healthiest thing for them, but for the type of body they want to have and what they're doing, they got to do all that because they're going to be hyper burning protein and glucose and all that stuff. So you got to get more of that in there. All right. Let me go, guys. I'll answer some more questions later. This is what I want you to do if you got more questions, because this live stream was built off of what someone left on my last one. Wait till the live stream ends, go back, go into the comment section and type in comments of things that you want me to investigate, look at. I know the doctor doing his thing. I'll try and keep some entertainment coming while we're at it. So if there's a topic you're more interested in, all I need you guys to do is just throw it in the comment section, not here, not the live comments, but after it's over in the actual comment section, because that's where I'm able to catch it later on. And then I'll know how to kind of steer the next live stream. Okay. But I got to get out of here because I got to grab my clothes. I got to go home. I got some video editing to do. Wanted to give you guys some time today. We got a good hour and 37 minutes in. I hope this stuff was helpful. If you don't follow me on Instagram, y'all got it right there at the bottom, along next to the Cash App for those who want to hook a brother up. But yeah, and remember, follow Urban Nerds Worldwide channel too, because we don't go over there for anything that's controversial or not too much opinionated. We go over onto that channel because we're talking about science, technology, engineering, and math, and we believe the masses must know about it. And we want our children to be able to pick this data up. So we use that channel to show off that, at the very least, our urban community members and definitely the Black people around the world, we got that science in us. That's what runs the world, and we are the urban nerds. So for all of y'all out there who have your specialties, I want you to have your specialties to the point where you would be considered a nerd about it. So if we bring you in, you guys want to run your mouth about what you do well, I'll bring you in on Urban Nerds. I'll set up a live stream, give you all these cool designs and everything, tell you what I need, and have you run your mouth like crazy. But you got to be able to show people you are a nerd about what you do. That's it. Just be damn good at what you do to the point where you can give so many little known facts and stories that the average person won't know. And that's going to make our community better. It's going to make the young people say, damn, that actually sounds cool. Because instead of being force fed through school, just being told you need to know this and have good grades, they're going to have stories that say, man, based on the story they told, I could see myself doing this. And now they don't just feel like they got to be a sports player or a musician. They can find the magic in life being someone who actually makes our lives run outside of those things. Because even if I'm a musician and I'm a great sports player, someone's got to feed me. Someone's got to build my house and give me a place to live that's warm and all that. Someone's got to keep my health together. Somebody's got to fix up my cars and my tech and all that. Okay. So Urban Nerds, I'm peacing out of this joint. I love y'all. I catch y'all later.